Good morning or good afternoon or good night, wherever you are in the world. I just want to let you know, welcome to our first metrics in the new office. The lounge is about 80% done. So if you experience any issues, please let us know what they are. Send them to tech support is the best way. The question mic is going to be right up here at the front. Please use that when you have questions at the end or during. There's one less screen, you'll notice. We only have two here. A third one would be off anyway. One speaker next to each projector. Oh yeah, there's speakers next to each screen. You'll see them here and there. And then there's speakers in the center and speakers all along the back as well. So that the sound is everywhere in the room and a little more balanced than in the old space. And there's two pan-tilt zoom cameras, one up here in the back and one up here behind me. The one in the back is going to get fiddled with a little bit because right now all it shows you is the string lights. We're working on that. And welcome, and I will get us over to Jaime to get us started for the whole meeting.
Thank you. I'm Jaime Villagomez. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at the Foundation, and I'm really pleased to introduce the October Metrics meeting for a couple of reasons. To begin with, let me do the agenda and the theme. Oh, I am moving it forward. Is it all? The theme today is knowledge equity, which actually really resonates with me. One of the things that I enjoyed most when I was in Wikimedia is I participated in the seminar on indigenous languages. I have much family in Latin America that I've visited, and I understand that knowledge, understanding, participation globally is really an exciting opportunity for all of us. And for that reason, we've created this agenda today. During the agenda, Katie Love will talk about what she's doing in the area of knowledge equity and emerging communities. And then we have a very exciting speaker that will be presenting his initiatives in Latin America, which again I found quite compelling as I looked at his own YouTube videos last evening. Then we'll have a strategy update for all of us, and then we'll go to questions and answers. Welcome. So we have a pretty great list of new folks that are joining us. So you can see in terms of requisition hires, Dumansi, Jack, Arturo, Dana, Contractor Sumit, Lindsay, Ravi, Sabrina. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Foundation. And anniversaries. So we have, I won't go through everyone's names, but we have a nice long list of anniversaries. And I just wanted to congratulate all of you for your time, efforts, outcomes, impact you've been having here over from 9 years to 1 year. So congratulations to all of you. An update. So I wanted to highlight upcoming events that we have projected here. So in the case of GLAM Editathon training, that was one of the highlights. The GLAM team launched an Editathon training module on programs and events dashboard. The Wikipedia videos in Nigeria, the new readers team, Zach, Jack, and Anne, from audiences worked on the Nigerian community to create 2 videos with local celebrities. Congratulations. And then finally, the multimedia team uploaded the first experimental STL files on test wikis. So these are great highlights for the quarter, and we thank all of you for your efforts. So what's upcoming in November? So we have a diversity conference that's going to be held in Stockholm between the 3rd and 5th of November. Through the grant from Community Resources, the conference will create a platform for discussing diversity across the movement, another very important theme for all of us. Secondarily, we've got the Abundance Commission in November and December. Support and Safety launched the 2018 Abundance Commission search. The Commission works on Wikipedia projects to investigate the issues raised around the privacy policy, particularly those involving the check user tool. So these are upcoming in November, and hopefully many people will be able to participate in these upcoming events. Okay, with that, I'd like to introduce Katie Love.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here, and I just want to point out there's no timer here. Usually there's someone like flashing a time thing so you know when to stop. So I'll just hope I get it right. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about knowledge equity and about our framework of emerging communities, and I'm going to need to use the clicker. Oh, turning it on, always a good start. Okay, thank you. I got it. Thank you, Edward, that was really sweet. All right, so I am Katie Love, and I work with the Community Resources team, and we are famous for many reasons. I hope you will have heard of us before. But our primary objective is to support our communities around the world to achieve our vision and mission together. We do so by passing along lots of funds to lots of different community organizers, to individuals, to affiliates, to do amazing programs that create content and bring in participation from folks who have been participating or not from around the movement. We support community organizers in doing this work, and we do provide grants, but we also provide capacity building and mentorship and a lot of other kinds of support. We do so through a very transparent and participatory approach that we're very proud of, and if you ever want to talk about how to make big decisions around money and pass along power to our communities, grants is a great way to do it. So in the last fiscal year, we made grants to 80 countries, actually, for just under $7.9 million. And I want to see if anyone knows how many grants we made. Just a guess. Zach, I'm looking at you. Abby, 200. Any other guesses? 300 and how many? 40. That's a great guess. One more guess from you, Juliet. 345. You are the winner because the answer is 392. And I know that not because I am psychic, but because we have amazing grants administrators who are working to really catalog and track these stats over time. So let's talk a little bit about knowledge equity. And I'm sure this will be familiar to all of you because we've been thinking a lot about this movement strategic direction for some time. And this is really exciting and inspiring to me as a strategic direction. This is the knowledge equity component of the strategic direction. I have seen the who of the strategic direction being communities that have been left out. And the how is around building strong and diverse communities and by breaking down barriers. These are things that we have been really committed to doing for some time on our team. Sorry. Too many things to hold. So for a long time, our team has recognized that knowledge is understood differently all around the world in different communities. And we've used the lens of diversity through geographic, language, and gender diversity to consider equity. So knowledge equity is really profound and resonating with our team. Our team's work at times has actually challenged the very core of the encyclopedic work of Wikipedia, questioning things like notability, reliability, and citation in order to progress towards our vision, which is the sum of all human knowledge, whether it is created by one or by many, offline or online, or by oral or written sources. That was the foundation. That has been our foundation for some time, and those words were written by Anasuya Sengupta, one of the former leaders of our team. So we have a lot of examples of this knowledge equity, and here are just a few. There are really so many more, but I can't resist but highlight a few of these efforts. Up here on the upper left hand, you'll see a photo of Wikimedia Indonesia, who's been doing some really creative programs, thinking about editor retention, and really trying to build out the Sundanese and the Javanese language projects, two of very large languages that are spoken by tens of millions of people all around the world and have had, until recently, very little participation in our projects. There's a photo in the upper middle of the Center for Internet and Society in India, which is an organization that has had long-standing work with deep partnerships with our communities to support specific Indic language communities. And here they're working with the Odia community on a gender gap initiative. Then we've also supported a number of organizations and individuals that are really trying to increase the content of various excluded groups on our projects. And so here are a few examples of, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a photo of Whose Knowledge, which is working here with the Bosnian LGBTQIA group. And there's a photo of AfroCrowd in the lower right corner, who is working to increase the number of participants from African descent in our projects. We also have a photo of a really beautiful sign from Wikimedia Mexico, which has been doing a lot of work on editatonas in Latin America, and specifically on gender gap-related topics in Mexico. And here is a photo from the Côte d'Ivoire user group, who's been working here in the French Wikipedia on an editathon on female Côte d'Ivoirian parliamentarians. So there are so many more examples. These were just a few that were on the top of my head of who has been doing what and how they have been tackling knowledge equity. So our theory is that resourcing and enabling local organizers is our scalable and sustainable approach to knowledge equity. How do we support those who have been left out? We know that there are many underrepresented communities in the world and in our movement, but who have a lot of potential to participate and contribute more. In fact, our grants and our other capacity building support that we provide has worked to reduce both the participation gap and the content gap. We've been working through the lens of diversity for quite some time, and we focus specifically on gender diversity as well as the Global South. Now, I know whenever I say Global South, there are a lot of kittens dying and people's ears going crazy. So let me just say, that is not the framework we use anymore, but that was the one that we started with. So, as a way to understand which communities have been excluded from, have not been highly represented on our projects in participation and content, we had a theory, a framework that was developed by Asaf Bartov. And that's the framework for emerging communities. Asaf would love this slide because it has no photos. So what it is essentially what his framework created. The emerging communities is a set of projects, languages, and countries where there's potential for increasing Wikimedia work, where there's insufficient capacity to realize that, and existing active core of volunteers. So it's both looking at knowledge equity, but also realizing, looking at the potential to change that. This framework could be really even more useful as we move towards a stronger focus on knowledge equity and trying to understand who has been left out so far. So this has been very powerful for our team. We've been exploring this for some time and tracking our own progress against this. So I mentioned that something like a project could be a community. So the Wikisource community is an emerging community by this definition. Also, the Ghanaian English-speaking community could be an emerging community. But then there are countries that we also consider emerging communities. And this is a map that Sati kindly helped put together to show you what those countries are. There are 72 of them. You'll see that they are, many of them are actually in the Global South, if you can make sense of this light map. And many of them, and a few of them are not. We have tried to make progress in increasing the numbers of communities we reach through our work, our capacity building work, and our grants, of course. And how are we doing as a team? So far, we have reached 61, or actually 62, of 72 countries. And that's pretty cool. About 85% of the emerging communities we've been able to reach through our grants work so far. And hopefully we'll be able to get a lot more. Well, how are we actually reaching emerging communities? This photo actually was taken yesterday, so thank you Wikimedia Commons for giving me this photo. This was taken at Wiki Arabia, which is taking place right now in Cairo. This is day 2, and several of our colleagues are there right now. But we see that there are a number of ways that we can actively and proactively support these emerging communities. Some of them are through supporting events, face-to-face events, which really matter in building a movement. We see other opportunities, things like Inspire campaigns, where we bring the movement's attention to some really gnarly problems and try to create solutions together. We'll be working on a campaign around awareness with the New Readers team in the weeks ahead, so stay tuned for that. We also see things like the Community Capacity Development Program, which is the program Asaf runs to help build specific capacities in communities, targeting emerging communities. And about a year ago, we had to ask ourselves some really tough questions on the grants teams of how we were going to be reaching more and more emerging communities. And we redesigned many of our programs to do that. If anyone wants to know more about our program changes, we're always happy to tell you about them. So, what about you? How does this apply to you? I'm sure you're all wondering that right now. Actually, I think the Emerging Communities Framework could be quite useful for many teams. It's something we've been in conversation with several of you about. How could we coordinate our efforts and target together to be more impactful in reaching those communities with potential? We'd really love to have you consider that framework. The hyperlink is just below on the version of my slides that doesn't appear here, but it's on MetaWiki on the community engagement page, and I'd really encourage you to check it out, to talk to our team or Asaf about it. It is a place that I think will be having a lot of implications for the knowledge equity direction. And as I reflect back on this knowledge equity statement from the strategic direction, I find myself really, really inspired by this. This has been a long journey, I think, for many people in our movement and many people in this organization who have really led this work. And there's one person in particular that I'd like to thank and appreciate for their contributions in this. And that's Adeli Vrana. Adeli has led her team from being a team that focuses on mostly partnerships with mobile carriers to a team that's really focused on reaching every human being through awareness and readership. And her work has inspired and created more connections for our team than we had before. Her passionate and extraordinary leadership in bringing new voices into the movement strategy has really inspired and been impressive to so many of us. We're so grateful for your leadership in that work, Adeli. And we will miss you. We are really inspired and grateful for you and your vision. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Katie, to hear you speak and to work with you, since we have a lot of partnerships in terms of trying to uncap this opportunity as well. So thank you very much. And thank you, Adeli, as well. Well, in particular, it's a real pleasure to introduce our next presenter. Our next presenter, Juan Manuel Lopera, is the CEO of Aulas Amigas, an initiative that he created several years ago. So without much ado, I'd like to introduce you, Juan Manuel, to all of us. Welcome, Juan Manuel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation, and apologies because I speak in English a few times in the year, so I'm sorry for the bad English that maybe I will use in the presentation. But it's a pleasure to me talking about Aulas Amigas. And to make a fast overview of what we do, or what is the motivation of the things that we do, and where's the belief of us about the knowledge in the K1 to 12 mainly, that is the area that we work on. I'm going to start with the history of a child and a superhero in the next slide. And please try to imagine the life of this child that is growing up in a very violent and drugs neighborhood in an emerging country, and he get the notice of the news about that. For example, his grandfather was killed before he was 10 years old, and his more adorable aunt was killed too, and his cousin, the son of this aunt, was trying to take a revenge of their killer of their mother. And finally, before 15 years old, he was killed too. that is growing up in a country, it doesn't feel like sadness. Really, he's feeling like I don't know, like frustration of what is happening, and he maybe is thinking how to take also weapons and go outside and take revenge of what is happening with all these murders in their families. And the question is, what is the probability of a kid that is growing up in the middle of all this violence and drugs? What is the probability of this kid, for example, becomes a good person? And I can tell you that it's really low. The highest probability is that this kid will be murdered or killed before 15 too. So the probability to get a good person in the middle of emerging countries is a little bit difficult. However, in this history, there was a superhero. This was my history, actually. I grew up in a violent neighborhood here in Medellin. However, when I was 12 years old, I had a superhero, a real superhero. It was a teacher that invested their own time without payment for taking me and some classmates out of the streets and out of the violence dynamic of that time. And finally, they become us like entrepreneurs. They maybe didn't teach us about mathematics or science, but he teaches us about the life, the opportunities that maybe we can have outside of that bad dynamic of the neighborhood. So the conclusion of all this, after that I made a company for education, is that this wasn't in the next slide, please. This wasn't something about technology. It wasn't something about contents. It was not about public politics of education. It was about the teachers that really inspires. The real change in the education and the development of knowledge in the emerging countries, for example, is not about content or public politics. It's about the real capacity of the teachers for making inspiring and opening the minds of the people that is growing up there. So we really think that it's about teachers that really can create replicable learning experience in their environments and in their neighborhoods. So the next slide. We finally created a company. Aulas Amigas is a company that I created 10 years before. And we're working for that. We're working for teachers that inspires. We're trying to make a network of teachers that can create experience of learning, not only using contents, but really creating experience that take the advantage or take the context as one of the root material for creating knowledge inside the classrooms. In the next slide, we have thousands of teachers around the world, Latin America and India, that actually today use technology from Aulas Amigas for creating knowledge and sharing it with other teachers. In the next slide, even in the middle of the jungle of Colombia, for example, we have teachers that without connectivity, that is the main barrier in the emerging countries today for really creating networks of knowledge. We actually there in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of the conflict of the guerrillas here in Colombia, we have created teachers that can create knowledge and share it with other teachers. The next slide. So the question is that if we think that the teacher is who really makes a difference in the life of the people, that is the teacher are who really can change the reality and save the lives of the kids. So the question is, if the teachers are really to inspire the 21st century humans that have many more challenge when you're trying to engage them and create knowledge inside the classrooms. So to the question that do they have the vision and resource and skills to do it, the answer is that the average of teachers in Latin America don't have it. The average teacher in Latin America don't have the skills and the vision to engage the new generation of humans. So what is the answer and what is the way to really get the results and save lives of the students and create really knowledge inside the classrooms. And in the next slide, the main of the answers to this by the governments and some organizations have been innovation in education. And everyone is talking about innovation in education and using, I don't know, computers, tablets, and putting contents in the classrooms. But finally, the success case of implementation of technology inside the classrooms are few cases. Really, there are not many cases of successful implementation and impact in the implementation of technology inside the classrooms. There are billions of dollars invested in innovation in education, but there are not the results that the people is waiting. And the main reason is because if you put technology inside the classrooms, but the kid is the children are growing up in the middle of a domestic violence or are they have malnutrition or something like that. So have information inside a computer is not a solution. The solution is a real path or linking the contents to get a real experience of learning inside the classrooms that can, I don't know, pass away from the problems of each one of the students, and finally make the students can improve their abilities beyond the problems that they have in their environment. So in the next slide, we really think that the isolated contents are knowledge as well, that this is only information. And what we need to do is support the teachers to take the context information to create paths or create learning experience, linking the contents to really build knowledge inside the classrooms. But the question ever is, if we are really hoping that the teachers becomes the builders of technology, the builders of knowledge, so what kind of innovation really we need to put inside the classrooms? That was our main question that we make to ourselves. And next slide, our conclusion was that there are many aspects where the technology actually need to be working on. Not only bringing contents to the schools and breaking the barrier of connectivity, but also helping the teacher in the planning process, the teaching and supporting process, the rating and strengthening process of the abilities of the students, in the communication with parents, sharing and networking with other teachers, and professional growth and metrics and some of artificial intelligence for taking decisions inside the classrooms. And of course, breaking the connectivity barriers inside the classroom. So the technology that is going inside the classroom until today, and the content that is going inside the classroom until today, is not really solving or supporting the teachers in the really issues that they have in each one of these moments of the cycle that the teachers lives all the time. Next slide. So when we start making some research of what kind of technology are there for teachers, we really find a lot of technologies that are isolated and are working to get some approach of the needs and solve some of the needs of the teachers. That really all these tools or technology are very difficult for the teacher to use. An average teacher cannot use all the hundreds of technologies or resources that they can or should use inside the classroom. So we made ourselves a question of what is the technology, the next slide please, what is the right technology that we should make so we can break the barrier of internet that also help the teacher to make this kind of technology more affordable, that they can really use it to build knowledge and create learning experience, linking again the content that they can find in Wikipedia or can find anywhere, and how to link it into a really knowledge building experience inside the classrooms. So we became the first company in Latin America creating technology and manufacturing technology for education. So we have invented like the iPhone for the teachers, a device that really the teachers loves and can use all the days inside their classrooms to gain better knowledge creators. So the next slide, please. So we have created a device named Tommy that can go to the classrooms anywhere and take their internet without internet. So the teachers can share internet with any laptop or smartphone without having internet really. That also can help the teacher to rating the exams and make some analysis of the results and suggest some personalized curriculum to the students, but also can take attendance or can make open repository of content. For example, we have their integrated Wikipedia, and the teacher can synchronize all Wikipedia to be used in the classrooms. That we're now starting to working on that. We hope to do it soon. But we're working to take metrics offline of what is really happening with the contents offline and using it to guide the teacher in the next steps in the education of the students. So it's also a digital whiteboard bundle inside the same device. This is a way to be in touch with the parents. This is a help for curricular planning and professional growth of the teachers. And finally, what we are trying to do is really break the barrier that the knowledge has, because the low skills of the teachers are improving it with the technology, not only putting in the hands of the students the information, but helping the teacher to create really experience with knowledge. I have a short video in the next slide. It is 3-minute video. So we have thousands of these devices today in Latin America and India. And now we are working in how to create a network of teachers that can create not only content, but real educative experience that link the content in a document path for being replicated. So the isolated content aren't enough. We really need experience that teachers can replicate with other teachers around the world. This should be like a Wikipedia bed of experience of teacher applying the content that Wikipedia have. That's what we're trying to do from today. So I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Well, that was fantastic, Juan Manuel. So many thanks, muchas gracias. It was a fantastic presentation. And now we'll turn on to the next topic. So sit still, Juan Manuel. We'll have questions at the end of the session, but I'd like to turn it over to Nicole for her update on strategy.
Thank you, Jaime. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm happy to be presenting here today because, yeah, as I think you probably know, and you can already skip to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. We are in the middle of a strategy process in our movement, and this process has the goal to figure out for us as a movement what it is that we want to build and achieve together in the next 10 to 50 years, or actually by 2030. That's why we use this wonderful hashtag Wikimedia 2030 for this whole process. And today is kind of a very special day because it marks the final milestone of the first phase of the Wikimedia, of this strategy process. And over the past around 8 months or so, many of you and many of those whom you know have been contributing, have been discussing, have been helping shape this strategic process, have contributed to it, and this all resulted in the new strategic direction for the Wikimedia movement. I won't go into details of the direction now because this has been presented in the last metrics meeting by Guillaume and Catherine pretty well, and there have been, I think most of you probably also had the chance to read it on Meta or to see some of the other videos and interviews Catherine, for example, gave, and also Katie has mentioned it in her presentation in this meeting. And what this direction does is actually it provides us with the answer to the question, what is it that we want to build and achieve? And to sum it up, it says that by 2030, Wikimedia will become the essential infrastructure of the ecosystem of free knowledge, and anyone who shares our vision will be able to join us. And today, we would like to invite all of you to declare your intent to work towards this strategic direction together as a movement. And this invitation in practice, it looks like we invite you to endorse the strategic direction. And by you, I mean organized groups within our movement, and organized groups are defined as affiliates, and also the Wikimedia Foundation, the different committees, and also groups who don't probably have a formal structure, but who work together as a certain group in our movement. These groups and also individual contributors, so everyone who is active in the Wikimedia project, be it as an editor, as a photographer, as a developer, or contributes to our mission, those people and groups are invited to endorse the strategic direction. And by endorsement, we mean adding their signature to a meta page, which is probably not a big surprise to many of you. Yes, we've set up a meta page, and I will be showing the link on one of the next slides. You can probably already skip to the next slide. Thank you. This is the link to the endorsement page. And by endorsement or endorsing, that's probably a term that also needs some explanation. We mean that, or is meant that you commit or you agree that this is the right way for us as a movement to move forward, and also that you agree to participate in the next phase of the movement strategy process in good faith and contribute to it to figure out what it is that we now actually need to do. And yeah, in the strategy team, we were talking about this quite long and discussing how we can set this up, and then decided, okay, let's do this as an endorsement day to kind of use this day also to celebrate that we've reached this final milestone of the first phase, and that we also want to try to create some dynamics or some feeling of a group dynamics in the movement. When people are like we're sitting in front of our computers and editing a page together, but some people I've seen them like following this page like all the day and counting the signatures on Meta. When I last counted, it's probably like half an hour ago or so, we already had signatures from around 40 organized groups, and kind of the same number also from individual contributors who have already said, yes, this is what I think the movement should be, or how the movement should be going forward. We've of course also heard people raise concerns. We have there are concerns and comments on the talk page that we of course are also reading and hearing. But this endorsement day is especially also meant for us to see how broad the support actually is, because that's what we also said. The direction is there, and there's no with phase 2, there's no way of going back to the direction and changing the wording of this direction. And I'm going to talk about phase 2 in a second. Just wanted to also use this as a little bit as a call to action. So please, if you want to endorse it, please do it. Everyone's really invited to do it. No, not yet. Can you go one back? Don't spoil it yet. And you are also, of course, welcome to use the hashtag Wikimedia 2030 on all your social media accounts and talk to your Wikimedia friends about it, and ask them also, or encourage them also, to support the strategic direction, and like probably even celebrate a little bit, and be happy that we reached this point of the process. And now please go to the next slide. I will talk briefly about what phase 2 can look like. So what's next? We are currently in the process of setting up, of creating phase 2, of thinking about what do we actually need now? How do we actually do this? How do we move forward as a movement towards our new direction? And yeah, the questions that we want to answer in phase 2 is also, who will actually be doing what? How do we share responsibility across movement organizations and contributors? And what is it actually that we need to do to implement this strategic direction in our different plans and actions? And one of the first steps of phase 2 will first of all be to interpret the strategic direction, because if you ask, like if you have a room full of Wikimedians and you ask them to interpret the strategic direction, everyone will probably say something different, which is kind of it is a huge chance for us, because we can experiment, we can get creative, and we can figure out what it means for different people around the world. But it's also, of course, a challenge, because we need to figure out, okay, how can we move towards this same direction, and who can be doing what? And by who can be doing what, we also want to work on a mapping of the current capacities and resources in the movement. We know a lot about our movement, and we've learned a lot about our movement in phase 1, but we now need to figure out, okay, what is it that we already have and that can help us to move towards our new direction? And then, as I already said, plan how we can actually implement the direction in the different entities in the movement, also in the communities. How can they work towards this? And again, one other essential part of phase 2 will also plan how to answer the big questions. And you see there's a lot of planning still in this phase 2. So before we will actually be ready to, how do we call it, transform and I forgot how we call it. So let's do it and see and iterate and figure out what works and what doesn't work. We first of all need to to plan how we actually reach to the answers to big questions. Big questions, for example, about responsibilities, about roles and governance and decision-making processes in the movement, and also how is the best? How as I said, how do we fill this direction with life? And that's it from my point. And again, I would be very happy to see many more of you endorse the strategic direction. And of course, if you have questions, add them to the talk page, or of course, you can also reach out to me or other people in the strategy team. Thanks a lot. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Nicole. So now we'll open up the for questions from anyone online or here for any of our speakers today. So do I have any questions? And the mic is here in the front of the room. I'm sure there's a question out there somewhere. I'll start. Juan Manuel, so what was you talked about the trigger that really got you motivated to start the work that you've been involved in. What was that, and what has kept you motivated?
Okay, in the first time when I ended my high school, I didn't go to the university because money. However, I started a company when I was 16 years old, and I sold this out when I was 19, and I get enough money to take my family out of the neighborhood where we grew up. And when I felt that I get a lot of money, but this wasn't so much. However, this was so many more than the money that my parent, for example, can make all his life working in the work that he had. So I really feel that I need to make something with more meaning than just making a company for making money. So that was the reason why I think someday that we should to multiply the teachers like my teacher, because they saved my life, and other teacher can save the life of many other kids around the world. So that was the main trigger. It was when I exit my first company, and I really felt that I can't do that because a teacher. So we will need more teachers like that.
Thank you. Danny?
Hello. Yes. Hi, Juan Manuel. The Tomy 7, from what I could tell from the video, it's magic. That looks amazing. So I'm just curious, like, where are you actually with that project? Like, is this a thing that's currently out and available? Like, where is it right now?
We actually have thousands of this already in the market. So this is real. Everybody say that this looks like magic. Mainly the teachers really feel that it's not possible, that there is something that really help them to save time and being better teachers. So this actually is already in the market. We're now in Latin America. We are going to US in the next year. This is like $900 cost per each one of this little computer.
That's amazing, and really exciting to see. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Any questions online? No? Okay, if one last call for questions, if there aren't any, I'd like to thank all of us today for participating in the metrics meeting. And I'd like to once again thank our presenters, for a fantastic set of presentations and very compelling messages on the topic of knowledge equity. So thank you very much.
Thank you.